What's up? It's Adam. Welcome back to Bringing It Backwards, a podcast where both legendary and rising artists tell their own personal stories of how they achieved stardom. On this episode, we had a chance to chat with Eloise over Zoom video. Eloise was born in London, then she moved to France, and then back to London. And she talks to us about how she got into music. We hear about how her career really started off a cover song. The artist hears the cover, asks her to come to the show and get up on stage and sing the song with them, which is wild. Then she ended up opening up for the artist, playing some massive arenas, opening up for Sam Smith. We hear all about her debut album, Drunk on a Flight, how the album kind of came together. We talk about the photos she posted of the flight she was on, that she got drunk, and came up with the concept for Drunk on a Flight, not only the song, but the ideas for the entire album. And we talk about her most recent music video for the song Giant Feelings, which was all shot in one take. She flew to LA to shoot this video. They had about 4 attempts because of timing. They needed to catch the sunrise at a particular time. It's just super fascinating. So she talks about that video as well for Giant Feelings. And of course, all about the new album, Drunk on a Flight. You can watch our interview with Eloise on our Facebook page and YouTube channel at Bringing It Backwards. It'd be amazing if you subscribe to our channel. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Bringin' Back Pod. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, we would love it if you follow us there as well and hook us up with a 5-star review.
We'd appreciate your support if you follow and subscribe to our podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts.
We're Bringing It Backwards with Eloise.
So I basically had a really horrible voice for a very long time, but like
Really?
excruciating to listen to. I had a really like nasal messed up thing going on. Also, I had a really strange accent because I was half English, half French, watching loads of old classic American movies where they have the transatlantic accent that doesn't exist anyway. So everything was like out of whack to the point where like I one time was like out singing in like the fields, and I was trying to get through this barbed wire fence, and as I was climbing out, I got caught and cut up by all the barbed wire, and I was like screaming for my mom, and I was like, come. She didn't come for a hot sec, and then when she eventually did, we went inside. I was like, why didn't you come get me? And she was like, darling, I thought you were singing. I mean, I was a terrible singer.
Awesome. I'm Adam, and this is about you and your journey in music, and we'll talk about the new music video, which I just watched, which is awesome, and the album coming out in April.
Perfect. Sounds
Awesome.
Great.
Cool. So were you born and raised in France? Is that what I read? Or between France and London?
No. Yeah, I was born in London, and then when I was 3, we all moved to Normandy in France, and then I lived there until I was 10, I think. So I learned to read and write in French.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was very strange going back to like England when I was 11, and there was internet and all this stuff that I had context of.
Interesting. So, was English your first language, and then you would learn French there, or like how did that work?
Yeah. So my dad is like a real linguist who speaks like a bunch of languages really well. And I think he taught me like little bits here and there. Obviously my memory's super vague of being 3.
Of course.
But it was more or less like I got dumped into a school, and you at 3, not only is your brain like a sponge, but you have to survive.
Sure.
So I was like, I'm just going to have to understand this gobbledygook. And I did eventually. And then I would come back home and speak English.
Oh, okay. Do you still speak French fluently?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, having your dad
cool.
be multilingual, I'm sure that helps. Like you've got to probably have it in your brain a bit. I'm so terrible.
Yeah, and then there must be something to do with like music, because so much of it is like your ear.
Uh-huh.
And I wonder if someone's like made a link between like music and languages and things like that, for like picking up on sounds and being really sensitive to sound. I've always thought about that.
Yeah, no, that's a great observation, because pronunciation and everything, you would think like, oh, okay, that sounds wrong, or that sounds
Yeah.
like it shouldn't be that way. But same thing with music.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's the wrong note.
Yeah, exactly.
So with music, do you come from a musical household at all?
So my dad's not musical. His side of the family isn't particularly musical, but my mum's side is super musical. She's an actor and like a singer and does like musical theatre and stuff, but all her sisters grew up singing. My nana was a tap dancer and my grandpa was a jazz trumpet player. So it's gone so far back, all different types of musicalities kind of coursing through.
Wow.
So it's a very loud household growing up, a lot of singing drunkenly around the piano, and then me being the little girl on the side who's like with staying up with the adults secretly.
Did you pick up piano at an early age as well?
Yeah, so I basically had a really horrible voice for a very long time, but like
Really?
excruciating to listen to. I had a really like nasal messed up thing going on. Also, I had a really strange accent because I was half English, half French, watching loads of old classic American movies where they have the transatlantic accent that doesn't exist anyway. So everything was like out of whack to the point where like I one time was like out singing in like the fields, and I was trying to get through this barbed wire fence, and as I was climbing out, I got caught and cut up by all the barbed wire, and I was like screaming for my mom, and I was like, come. She didn't come for a hot sec, and then when she eventually did, we went inside. I was like, why didn't you come get me? And she was like, darling, I thought you were singing. I mean, I was a terrible singer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, really bad. So she was like, you should probably do the piano,
I thought you're going to say, oh, and she said, you sounded great this time around. Like, I didn't want to stop you. Like, I was going to be like.
No, that would be the nice way. That's right. No, she was just like, let's put you in some piano lessons, babes. And then I found my way. So
what age were you when you started playing piano?
I mean, I think I was like 4.
Oh, wow.
But like I'm nowhere near as good as I should be, considering I learned at 4, because I've done it for 12 years now, but I'm still terrible at the piano. I could just get by. When I learned guitar, it was like so exciting to me, and I could play the guitar anywhere. I could bring the guitar anywhere I went. So it took over for a bit.
What was the reason why you decided to start playing guitar? Was it to write songs?
Yeah, it was definitely to write songs. I learned to play guitar really because I was sick of not being able to play an instrument every time I went away from a piano.
Okay.
But I was starting to write songs, and I was really like exploring. And the way I taught myself guitar was like, I would watch live performances of my favorite players like Joe Pass. And then I'd like freeze and zoom in on what his hand was doing. So then I had this, I created like a little bit of a cheat code for learning. So I was like, I just don't want to learn guitar.
Were you watching like YouTube videos or something, and you would pause it and be able to kind of see mirror what he was doing with his hand on the neck?
Yeah. And then if I couldn't see what the chord was, I think like that was a real moment where I was developing my ear a lot, because I would just have to rely on like what notes I could pick out in each chord. And then, so I have some chords that I play that are the right chords, but like guitar players have like seen my hands and they've been like, why on earth have you decided to play it that way? I'm like, I was just picking it up based on like how I was hearing it. It was just the first way I taught myself.
Oh, that's interesting. I've seen like other guitar players that have to flip the guitar upside down, like lefties, and then they'll have to like make power chords like almost upside down. Like it's always interesting to see, not if you don't learn it in a traditional way how to play it, you can almost create kind of cool sounds that if you would never be able to figure out, or maybe someone who would learn guitar classically or through a teacher would never like even think to do, because it's just not the natural way of playing the instrument.
Exactly. I think there's so much freedom that comes from like being naive and being uninformed. And I think like I think it was Bill Evans or something. He said something. I'm not going to try and say what it was word for word, but he said like our job as musicians is to like hold on to as much of the kind of uninformed version of ourselves so that we can keep creating and giving new stuff.
No, I completely agree with that. I've interviewed people who have said similar things where it's like, well, I'm glad I wasn't classically trained in the sense that or like learn theory in a way where it's like, you might go, oh, I wouldn't go that way because it's not the traditional route of writing the song, or those notes shouldn't go together. But when I did it, it sounded really cool, or it was just like a different sound.
Yeah, I think that it is like a really special thing. But I mean, don't get me wrong. I would love to know some theory. It could really help me out here and there. And I wouldn't mind being able to do a jazz solo on the piano. But I also like my way of doing it. You know,
Sure, I think you're doing
grass
well
was greener
with your own. So when you started writing songs, like, were you putting them up online? Like, where did that start?
I think I put like one thing on SoundCloud or whatever. I was kind of trying to I remember really being like, I need to get good at this before I commit to anything being out there. I think quite young, I was like, I need to get good at this. And so I would put things up or take them down after a while, and like a lot of covers when I was little. But I went to the Brit School, which is like a music school in the UK.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's like a really difficult school to get into. Don't they only take like 5 people or something like that?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's like, I think there's 50 people in a year group or something. So it was, and I was the only one who got a conditional place, which meant that I had to get my grades. I had to get like a pass in maths and English to get in. Everyone else got an unconditional offer, and I was like, well, now I have to work and still. But so I went there, and I think it wasn't amazing for me in the way I thought it was going to be, because I didn't learn how to write better songs, but I learned how to perform. And I think I started then realizing, okay, at some point I'm going to come out of Brit School and I'm going to be waiting for the gig, and I'd rather set it up so that by the time I leave school, I'm sorted and I can go. I just decided to put logic into an illogical situation. And that's when I started putting songs out. But not that many. It was just a music Instagram. And my third video was a cover of Bruno Major's song, and then I met him the week later, and then my career started.
How did that happen? I mean, was it based off of that cover?
Yeah, so I did the next day and commented on it, and then sent me a message saying I'm playing a gig in London this Friday. Will you come on stage and sing it with me? And I already had tickets to that gig, but I was like, I'll clear my schedule. Let me think about it. And then I came off stage and met his manager, who's now my manager. And then I'm pretty sure a month later, I was sending in my letter to Brit School saying I'm out, because they were like, we're going to go on tour. And
oh my gosh.
Basically, yeah. So I then toured with them for 4 years.
That's wild.
So I know, it's bizarre. So I opened for Bruno, and then I played keys and did backing vocals in his band. And then we still did the song that I covered. We did that as a duet. But we went straight to North America. We supported Sam Smith in arena tours, and I was 17, turning 18. Everyone was doing their final pieces for school and stuff.
You're enjoy that. I'm going to be opening up for Sam Smith at this massive arena.
So strange, so strange.
After that, did you decide okay, is that when you started to put out, for example, your EP, in 2019, was that around that? Was that a little bit later, or was that much further down the line?
That was, I think we'd done 2 or 3 tours of North America, and maybe 2. And then Bruno was just I was looking for a producer to do it. Mm-hmm. And he was like, look, I know these songs so well. I've heard them on the road every single night. I know how they should sound, and I know how you are and I know how you want them to sound. So we made that together, and I was releasing it when we went on the next tour after that. So, but I was part of that band for a long time. It's only recently that I've even done my first headline tour. I was still just very much a part of that up until COVID.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
So when COVID happens, that must have been, obviously, awful for everybody. But were you on tour when that happened, or were you guys back? And
we'd just gotten back, and they were going to go off without me to do a leg in Asia, and then that obviously got cancelled like very quickly. And to be honest, I think I at that point like really needed a break, because the way that we were touring for Bruno was very intense, and it was like a long time on the road, a lot of shows in a row, and not much time off when we get back. So I think by that point I had like done, 14 years in school, gone straight into full-time work, and like I was like, oh, maybe I need to be horizontal for like a year.
Yeah, I'm sure you got burned out. That's what you were still in school when you got picked up from Bruno, it sounds like. And then you was like, you're touring constantly, not only that, but writing music and putting out your first EP. I can't imagine how much. You're probably pretty drained at that point.
Yeah, I needed like time. Also, I just needed time to be like, all right, well, what's the next step for me? Because I can't just, do this all the time.
Sure.
So yeah, it's been a wild few years.
Was that kind of the idea behind Somewhere in Between? Because you're in between working with him and then putting out, you're trying to figure out where you're at with your own project. Or not even close.
I think like as I get, no, it definitely is a part of it. I think as I get further and further away from the time in my life where I made that EP, I realized that I think that was also a big part, because obviously it's like it's initially about the romantic, like Somewhere in Between. But actually now I think about it, my whole life was like in like limbo. In like a really exciting way, but also like a very daunting way, because I came back and, the world had stopped, and it was just very strange. Like it was just a weird time. I mean, a weird time for everyone, but, also just like personally, it was strange. So definitely.
And do you start were you writing that record all during that time period, kind of during the like lockdowns?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really bad at finishing songs. So like I think I had all the starts to all of the songs. Like I'd have like a verse here and there, or a chorus here and there. And it was like I had no excuse. I was like, I'm bored. Like I might as well just like finish these songs. And then I had so many songs, and they all felt so about the same thing. And it was just like, I think that was also, it was nice to write a project kind of live time. I think like my first EP, I'd written those songs so many years before, and it was nice to like put something out that I was still experiencing, and like I was still in that, still relatable to me.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And then you have your new album coming out, and you've put out a few songs. I had a chance to hear the whole album. I think it's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, let me pull it up real quick, because there's a couple. I'm bad with track listings, but Make It Better, I think, is my favorite song on the album. I like the whole record, but that one really, I was like, wow, this is such a cool song.
Yeah, I love that one too. It's an underdog.
Yeah, no, I think it's a smash. I think it's such a great song.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I was looking at your Instagram. I love there's a photo of you. You said something along the lines of like, this is the flight that I wrote drunk on a flight on, and like you have the bottle of vodka inside the tonic thing, and you kind of have it on your head. Tell me about that.
Hammered. I had like, it was mental. I'd basically, obviously everything in my life was changing. I'd like dropped out of school and was getting ready for this monster tour, and I had been with my boyfriend from 13 to just about to turn 18, so more or less 5 years.
Wow.
And on the day that I was like due to fly with the band to LA to start a tour, we just like silently broke up. We literally woke up in bed, we looked at each other, we didn't say a word. It was just very much like, okay, we've had our time. It was super lovely, and therefore really heartbreaking. And like I just like got in the taxi, and he just like waved me off, and then I was like, oh my god, that's just my whole childhood. There it goes, and I'm about to start the next chapter. I've had very clear chapters, ends and starts.
Mm-hmm.
And they all correlate with me flying away, which is a big theme of the album. But I basically, I didn't tell any of the boys that I was touring with, apart from Slim, who's my best friend. He's Bruno's drummer. And we sat next to each other on the plane. I was like, babes, look, it may be the AM, all right? But what's happened is I've just broken up with my ex-boyfriend now, and we're going to have to get really drunk. And then he's like, oh, put the like little light on, and then we just, while everyone went back to sleep because it was such an early morning flight, we were just hammered the whole time. And like, we have a really good thing where he's kind of a songwriter as well, and we like we'll say lines that sound poetic, and then we'll be like, who gets to have that line in one of our songs? Like, we divvy up lines.
Okay.
And so I ended up with this whole like note thing on my phone of all these feelings I had, and that's the whole album came from that.
Whoa. So the album
Yeah,
sparked out of that
everything.
flight. Wow.
Yeah. And I didn't think it was anything. I knew that these were all songs to like revisit or themes to revisit. But then I like broke up with my next long-term boyfriend and then flew 3 days later back to LA. And then on my way back, like missed my flight home, and then wrote a song that meant that I wrote Giant Feelings. Like, it's just been it's been very strange, and all based on traveling and being slightly drunk.
Oh, so I'm just back to the original flight. With those notes on your phone, was that wasn't that song that just became ideas for what became like themes throughout the whole album, or song, maybe pieces that you use for different songs throughout the album? Is that what you were saying?
Yes, there were like most of them. I definitely wrote the opening lyrics for the song "Drunk on a Flight."
Mm-hmm.
Because like Slim was like, why did you break up? And I was like, because it had to end. And he was like, write that down, because it needs to be that simple when you have the song. So there's, the opening lyric of that song as we broke up when we woke up, because it had to end. It's like simple. So I had bits like that for that song. And then the rest was like, explore themes of this feeling, explore themes of this and whatever. And then I did explore those themes.
Yeah.
Years later.
So that I was going to say that must have become like that started off. You said you're getting ready to do a big tour, so that had to be 2009. Before the pandemic, obviously, and then you just kind of kept those and wrote them throughout the next few years.
Well, so I wrote "Drunk on a Flight," that song, and then I like nothing else I wrote like made it to the album. So I actually ended up starting to write the album at the beginning of last year. I mean, it was a 6 months process writing the album and producing it. Like, it was a very quick turnover. Yeah, super quick, because I was really in flow. Like, I had just had this amazing trip to LA where like I had been writing in a really different way and writing in a kind of poppy style.
Mm-hmm.
And I came back to London with this like excitement, kind of like when I started learning guitar, like something new. Like, I can try and write in this style for a bit. And then all these songs like just poured out, and then they were all to do with this, flying and traveling and the heartache of leaving stuff behind, but excitement of going towards something new.
Mm-hmm.
It was it's been a very magical thing.
Yeah. Wow. You mentioned Giant Feelings. The video for that song is so cool. I love that it's like one long take. Like, there's no edits to it. And then there's a part in the middle where the song drops out, and you sit down on the chair and you light a cigarette, and then it starts to rain, and it picks up at that point of the song. Like, it's just such a creative video. How many takes of that must have taken a while to shoot, or maybe it was like, no, you nailed it right off the bat?
I don't think it was that I nailed it. I think it was the whole idea was to do it as the sun was rising, and once the sun starts rising, you've got like 10 minutes to get it done.
Oh wow.
So we could only do, I think it was like 4 takes or maybe 3 takes before the sun was like up. So we just had to choose out of those because we were really like, we were running on Mother Nature's time. We all had to be on set for like 3:30 and like start shooting at like 4 or something, or like practicing at 4. It was mad because it was just one, like a guy with a camera like running backwards on a massive hiking trail. Like he could have fallen off.
Oh, he was running. I wondered if he was just like a dolly or some sort of skateboarder or something that somebody was able to pull. No, wow. That's
my guy was running.
Oh my gosh. And the way that you stay perfectly in frame was like, for me, I was like, whoa, you're not like the timing of you having to walk, like the speed and pace and staying so close to each other where you're not like, 10 yards behind, or you're in the same place throughout the whole shot. Like it was really impressive.
I think so. I mean, like at the time I didn't clock it until I like watched it back, and I was like, this is really impressive. Like it's just that fact in itself is like really impressive, and that we managed to get the sun at the perfect time and it be like a really nice day.
Yeah, because you look out at the end and you can see the sun like just about halfway up behind the building.
Yeah.
There. And it's a beautiful shot. I didn't even think about the timing of it, right? Of it coming, the sun coming up, and wow.
Yeah, because you just can't CGI that stuff. Like you've got to.
No.
Also, we'd flown to LA basically to shoot that video. Like obviously had some work things to do around it, but like we flew to LA to do that video. So in my mind, the whole time I was like, this has to be good.
I was wondering if that was Los Angeles, because I wasn't sure if it was a part of, London or in the UK somewhere, but I know I was looking at it. I'm like, I think this is LA. I'm originally from San Diego, so I was familiar with it a bit. So I'm like, I think LA, but
no, it's very definitely. I mean, I think like the main reason was like, because there's obviously beautiful like woods and trails in London and in England and whatever, but there isn't a sunrise like that one because it's kind of smoggy and there's like a kind of
there's like that overcast
been like swiped over it. It's it's
Southern
not
California
like the distinct sun. It's just a blur of color. And in my head I was like, it has to be there. It has to be like an LA sunrise.
Wow. And then to have it like to fly there knowing, okay, we got to get this.
I know. Mental. I have to get it right as well. Like I have to like mouth along properly. I haven't heard the song in so long that I'm like, I don't even remember the words, and if I fuck up like the last words of the last bit, we have to go again.
Go start over, right?
Yeah.
There's even a point when you start running. I'm sure the camera guy was like, oh man, he's like trying to run backwards at this point.
Nightmare. Yeah. Real troopers on that set. That's troopers.
Funny. I just have a few more questions for you, but I'm just curious, like, was there a song on the record that you felt, where you're like, okay, this is super vulnerable. Should I put it out? Or was there like a moment on the album that could really sticks out to you when you were putting it together?
I think like the up tempo songs, I was like, definitely like, whoa, this is definitely a step in a different direction. And I was a bit anxious about that because like, you don't know how that's going to land when you've represented a certain genre for so long. I think that was like the main one, but like, my whole thing is like, I think I have a really great advantage, which is that because I am so honest and I give so much of myself in these songs, there's never like, it doesn't feel like the people who listen to my music rely on me being really like present on social media or like in the way that most people have to be, because I'm like, everything about me. If you've listened to all of my songs, my biggest traumas, and that's it. And my happiest days. So I feel like I'm lucky to share that with people. So I never get like that scared about it. But I'm really intrigued to see how certain songs land. For example, Make It Better. And like, I wonder where that goes. It's like, what even is that song? Like, what even is that type of music?
I love it. It's interesting that you said the more upbeat ones, you're kind of like curious about. And like when I heard, I mean, I love your songs and even before this album, but like to hear that one, I was like, wow, this is cool because it's just different. And even like there's different elements in all your songs, even with Vanilla Tobacco. There's like that like hip hop like record scratch sounds and like just like your experience experimenting with so many kind of cool elements that it all makes sense, but it's not just like straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, that's all Connor, who produced the whole album, Connor Albert. He's like, I knew he was amazing because I followed him on Instagram and I saw these clips of him and he's brilliant. To watch him actually do what he does is so mad. He is so free. And like, I think because I was like, oh, how do you hear it? Like, I just want to hear how you hear it without me telling you how I hear it. And then we went with all the first drafts of all of these songs. We never did like a second draft or a third draft. We were just like, no, that's it. Because that's how it came out. And that's how it's meant to be.
That's awesome.
You know? We'd have like a song finished after 2 sessions. That's why it was so quick. He's just like a beast.
Yeah, you said it. You got the record done fairly fast. Like when you started writing it, it was just like go time. Well, I think the album's amazing. And I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for doing this, Eloise.
Thank you so much. Great questions.
Well, thank you. I have one more quick one for you before I let you go. Do you have any advice for aspiring artists?
Don't worry about trying to be different or trying to be the same. And don't worry about formula of anything. Just like be free. Don't ignore the voices saying you got to have a chorus. Where's your pre? Where's all this? You know, just go with it.